Live on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024 at 11:19 a.m. Eastern Time. This is Tommy from Tommy's Podcast, of course, with my buddies Siraj Hashmi and Don the Pleb. Both of their rumbles are in the description. None of us are on YouTube that I know of because we've all been nuked. And so right now, so Siraj is in Florida, Don's in Texas, I'm in Portland, Maine, and I'm just now wondering if there are any shenanigans. If I can't go vote, do I just start putting on lipstick in the line? Do I maybe start, I don't know, tying my shirt really tight and talking about how like they, them, zer will not be denied to vote for her? So that's the adult mature things going on in my mind right now. Siraj, what were you just saying to Don and I before this about if it back to 2016 how Trump went at like 3 in the morning versus now?
Well, before I get into that, I actually heard that if you put on lipstick and tie your t shirt really tight, they'll actually let you vote twice.
Oh, okay, all
Yeah,
right, all right. Well,
you know, because
I only have
because
I
they
only have
them because they them because they them is plural.
I only have moisturizer, but hey, you know what? That'll work. But
No,
what? Yeah, yeah. What were you saying
but
about the
in
2016?
2016,
Yeah.
yeah. So look, my thinking on the election, just going back to the last two elections that we had in 2016, they decided that Trump won at 3 o'clock in the morning. In 2020, you didn't find out that a president was selected until Saturday after the election. That was like 4 days after the election. So if Trump wins and he wins decisively, it will be because of the states that really carried. I think like Arizona and Nevada aren't going to decide it for him. It's going to be the Pennsylvanias, the Michigans, and the Wisconsins. And by that time, if they don't decide on election night and it takes a few days, as a lot of these states election boards have said, it's going to take days to count, possibly weeks to count. With all the technology and the innovation and resources that we have at our disposal, the chances of Trump winning continue to dwindle down.
A- And they don't even have COVID as an excuse. Which I mean, again, not to give it
It's just
any.
crazy.
Which is not. I don't even want to say that because that still gives it decency. Like it's fraud. It
Well,
was
hold,
fraud
hold on,
then. It's
hold on,
fraud
hold
now.
on,
Yeah.
hold on, Tommy. Monkeypox is still alive and well.
Okay. Yeah, I know. And I mean, listen, and that's why. And I pray for you every night. Don, what do you think?
Siraj is absolutely right. This game you can see everywhere else in the world. Most of for anybody who's been paying attention to South Africa, they've been leading the charge on free and fair elections for a long, long time now, back to the very early 2000s. In fact, as soon as they started talking about free and fair elections here in the United States, every South African I know, which is quite a few, called me up and said, "Hey man, just so you know, that means they're going to cheat. That is what those words mean. Just deal with it. Expect that this is going to go out the window very quickly." And very related to that, I spent the 2020 election running a 24-hour election stream. Uh, and sure enough, at about 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting here pounding energy drinks to stay awake. But guess what happens to the votes? All of a sudden, flip. And then, well, we all know how 2020 went. And so I would suggest that the things to really watch out for on a minutia kind of level are going to be things like whether or not those states that Siraj was talking about get called early. It is probably not going to be the biggest deal if Arizona goes nuts. There are tons of people, the Jack Posobics, I forget his name, Project Veritas
Uh,
is down there.
Okay.
James
Everyone,
O'Keefe. James
James
O'Keefe.
O'Keefe. I think Steven Crowder is down there. Everybody and their brother is watching Maricopa County. So that may or may not get taken care of in the long run. But if Pennsylvania on Saturday is saying, "Oh, we stopped the count till Monday," then we have a problem.
Hmm. Yeah, it's the only thing I can add to just play devil's advocate is I remember how, I mean, in hindsight, you can see that it was coordinated and clearly planned. Like, of course, after the election, they have the secret campaign that saved the 2020. Yeah, everyone remembers that. But even the next day, it was it was like the banning of Alex Jones, how it was clearly coordinated because it happened within like 5 minutes. The next day, having never before come up on YouTube, on Reddit, on Instagram, on Facebook, and on Twitter, you started to get the blue banners. The AP has not called the election. The whatever. It all was rolled out immediately. And that was obviously incredibly depressing and blackpilling. But the thing about uniform suppression is it's it's not linear. If you have four
Mhm.
out of five social media apps in the whole, it's not the equivalent of 80%. It's only about the equivalent. If just to make up a number, it's 30%. Because when one breaks
Right.
through, that kind of, and I listened to last night Elon Musk on Rogan, he was saying since the acquisition of X, you can quantifiably, not just anecdotally, you can quantifiably see the difference on Facebook. Because once you start to have one, you can't really, it's making the bed and you're trying to put down all the corners at the same time. It's not, you have to get four corners. You can't have it all because it springs up. So just to play devil's advocate to you guys, that's what I would look at. And it's not just that X is now free. That would be a win right there. The owner is by no means neutral. He is throwing I mean, he's going.
Right.
It's a civilizational fork in the road. That's my positivity. What do you think, Siraj?
Well, one thing that has been sort of an underreported story in this election is that the major swing states are controlled by Democrat governors with Democrat secretaries of state, and they get to decide when an election is called. I actually learned this factoid from my wife just the other night when she said that some states, and we're not exactly sure which ones, but before like you have precincts reporting vote tallies to counties to states, and usually that goes to the Secretary of State. Sometimes though, in some states, and I can't again, this is purely just based on conversation. I can't actually back this up with facts. But somewhere I've heard that they actually, in before they send it to the Secretaries of State, they actually send it to the newswire before it even goes to the Secretary of State. So I think it's worthy of investigating. Just because like it kind of shows you that the media could be in on it, and if they're getting a voter tally, they can basically in an act of voter suppression report results very similar to what actually happened in 2008. They called the election for Barack Obama before midnight, and people were still in line in California. I think it was Prop 8 that was up uh for up for consideration in California, and there were I recall like a bunch of Democratic operatives or Democrat operatives who were saying, stay in line, you have to vote because, and then Prop 8 failed, like they just didn't go through. So there's the danger of calling an election too soon, but because you have Democrat secretaries of state, they are actually going to call it when they see the election results in their favor. And I expect that not to happen tonight, which is, I'm like 50-50 on it. So, to your point about these sort of, you know, four corners. What? I don't even know what you're talking about, Tommy.
When you're putting a sheet on the bed, four corners, you have to get them
Yeah,
all
no,
down for it to be effective. You can't get three out of four.
as in,
So in media,
as in like, as in
as
like, it has to be
suppression. Well,
coordinated.
as suppression. So if you want to
Got
shut
it.
down a story, having four out of five media companies or social media,
Right,
you have to have it all like what happened to me. You get banned
for
from
sure.
everything. But right now
Right.
there's a crack, and it's not a minuscule crack. I mean, Elon uploaded the video with Rogan last night. It's been less than 15 hours, 40 million views on Twitter. It's
Crazy.
so once you can break through, then you can kind of look at everything. I mean, look at JFK. There
Yeah,
was
no,
only one
it
video that
definitely,
screwed the whole thing.
it definitely reshapes the balance of the playing field in the information war.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This election is one of, it's going to be a first of many, right? I mean, they actively tried to throw Trump off the ballot in Colorado. Had to be overturned by the Supreme Court, even though it stayed with the Colorado Supreme Court. And on top of that, you have a presidential candidate who was assassinated nearly twice, potentially even three times. Um, and then he, just dusts himself off, goes and works at McDonald's and drives a dump truck.
It does. It does. Maybe another line of 2020 did, at least for me, anecdotally. 2024 has more of the 2016 meme energy, in my humble opinion, which to
It
me is a good
does. It very
indicator.
much does.
But before we start, as Siraj and I are both getting animated about talking about frogs, Don, do you have any like intellectual input on what he was saying about secretaries of state and governors? We'll get back to
So
frogs, Siraj. Don't worry.
he's absolutely correct. There's a lot of very small places in the way that elections are processed where things can go really, really haywire. There any number of people have come out and said they're not going to certify elections. They're not all kinds of goofball little things. And if you are not aware that some of these people have immense power at this moment, it's kind of who cares if they're not going to do that. But if you've got state electors who say they're not going to certify a Trump victory, that's kind of a big deal, right?
Mm.
If they're not going to carry the votes to Washington, then that's it. Um, the kind of discussion that you guys were having to begin with, though, was, or at least moved to, was the too big to rig discussion, right? Um, yes, it's very important that somebody be able to say, hey, these things are a problem. The very fine people hoax never, ever, ever could have got out in any realistic way without Elon buying Twitter. It was a pretty substantial change. Lots of us who are political pundits, lots of us who have spent a lot of time examining these things, within 48 hours, we all had the video of Trump, the speech beyond the 10-second clip that the media was playing. And we're all saying, hey, this is ridiculous. This is a hoax. It took 3 years before even a majority of people were aware that it was up for debate.
Mm.
And so Elon buying Twitter and eventually renaming it X does have a massive impact in that fashion. The question that we are all dancing around is, does this make it possible to make it too big to rig?
Correct.
And inherently, no. Right. A question I've been asking for almost a year now is, what happens if 1 billion votes are counted? Right. And that question, it exists almost exclusively to say, well, hey, what if they just say more people than are in the United States
Mm-hmm.
voted? Right. And if they're willing to do that, one, I think we all know elections for the foreseeable future are incredibly fraudulent. But two, what does the country do about it? And that is substantially less clear, in my opinion. Now,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit of an over the top question. Yes, it's designed to be a little bit ridiculous. There's a very high likelihood it's not actually going to be 1 billion votes. But that said, I've watched California for the past 20 plus years vote to the tune of 200% of voters, and nobody bothers with it except Judicial Watch. They're pretty on top of it, but nobody else seems to even notice, let alone care. And as long as that is permissible in California, for all of my life has been the saying, so goes California, so goes the nation. Well, if every state is voting to the tune of 200% of how many voters there actually are, and conveniently Democrats are winning every election, what do we do about it?
Mm.
And nobody wants to answer that for very good reason, in my opinion, but it
Yeah,
should be considered.
Don, you bring up a valid point about California because the results in so many of these states are already baked in. We haven't
Oh,
actually
yeah.
considered the fact that all the fraud happening in these states that we just assume are going to go red and blue aren't actually engaging in this type of fraud. I mean, they have ballot measures, they have local and state elections that they could easily manipulate. What's interesting, and I'm sure you've probably both seen the HBO documentary Kill Chain. And if you haven't, you have to, because it was made in 2020, in March 2020, right before COVID lockdowns began, and it is making the case in that the 2016 election was fraudulent because of electronic voter machines being hacked. Okay, this is the liberal case. Okay, the liberal case for election hacking, and it's wild that in the 2020 election integrity efforts, that documentary mysteriously disappeared. I watched it obviously after the fact, after it came back when Biden was sworn into office. But you watch it and you're like, this is exactly how this is the playbook that they ran with. Like, and there's almost zero way to trace it because every single device, every single electronic voting machine may not be connected to the internet on election day, but it has everything that can have like with anything that has a port that can you plug into a wall, it can be hacked, and it could be whether by disk, it could be hacked across internet connection. there's really no limitations in manipulating these votes. And think about all the machines that are involved, right? There are machines in which you like basically press a different candidate or the proposition. Uh, that obviously can show you a different result, or you could basically, you know, how some have been glitching and, they, try to select Donald Trump, but it actually selects Kamala Harris. Like that's one aspect. Then you have the paper ballot and the election sort of counting of it. If they have each ballot sort of, uh, some ballots actually aren't the same. Actually, I would wager, at least in Florida, that all ballots are individually sort of assigned to each voter. Like there's like barcodes around the side that shows you exactly, and it's different from everyone else. So they know what you're going to vote for. They could target you based on what you vote for. They know that in certain states where you have to, based on primary, you can only vote for Republican. If you're Republican, you can only vote for a Democrat. If you're a Democrat, you can't vote for anything if you're independent during the primary season. And just based off of that, like there's so many ways that they can manipulate that data. And nobody wants to talk about it because they just see you as an election denier.
Don.
I would actually wager, ever since we had electronic voting machines, I don't think any election in the United States has been free and fair. It's not until if Donald Trump wins this election and doesn't prioritize mandating paper ballots only, just banning electronic voting machines, that would be a massive loss of opportunity and a great disservice to this nation.
Former
That's a
Diebold
fact.
CEO said before Dominion, Diebold, that CEO said in like '04 he voted for Bush and he did everything in his power to vote for him. Very, very odd thing to say for the CEO of the vote counting machine. What did you phone bank? Not quite. It's yeah,
Different kind of bank.
yeah. Don.
Siraj is right. In the world of just how ridiculously insecure these things are in the 2020 election, immediately thereafter, there were guys that were standing in their board of supervisors office and their various government offices and saying, "Hey, look, I am connected to the voting machine in the next room through my iPhone right now, and I can manipulate the vote tallies as I see fit." And if now make no mistake, lots of these guys are IT security experts. This does not mean your grandmother's pulling out her iPhone and clicking the log into, voting machine button to just change the votes however she wants. However, if what you're talking about is guys who are able in any way, shape, or form to log into a voting machine through their iPhone and manipulate vote tallies, I think that's the end of the discussion of voting security. It's just over at that point. And to that point, that's how we get to make paper ballots great again, effectively. Because, yes, there are plenty of ways to just stuff ballot boxes and all those kinds of things. Those things are substantially more traceable than these voting machines where in plenty of places in the 2020 elections. Oh, where show me the logs of voting. Oh, well, they were erased at midnight on election day for whatever reason. And that unto itself is a felony. No one was ever prosecuted for that. No one was ever even looked into for that. Somehow or another, it was just okay that the thing that we should be able to use as a check to find out whether or not this election was fine was just gone. And with that kind of precedent, I would not be expectant that a Harris administration is going to go investigate the election she just won, after all of us are going to be staring at this going, well, look, you couldn't, much like Biden, right? You couldn't fill a water bowl with people, and yet somehow you got the most votes in history. Anybody want to explain this? No? No? All right, then, never mind.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know. I'll concede. Yeah, the very notion of too big to rig already, it's like that shouldn't even be on the table. Like too big. Like no. What's the rig? Like we're not doing it's. You gotta work out harder than the guy on steroids. No, test him. I'm not doing. This is stupid. I can work out twice as hard. If homie's on bare testosterone, it's not. So there, I do concede that I don't like it too big to rig. Like that shouldn't be even a discussion. It should be why is it? But clearly it's not, and it's election day, and too little, too late, I
Well,
suppose.
it's one of those things where you have, um, in many ways, people have been. I mean, Tommy, you and I have discussed it, and where we're kind of at mentally. Like we've done everything that we could
Mm-hmm.
do. We've advocated for why choosing Trump is infinitely better than choosing Kamala Harris. And we've used our platforms, we've talked about the issues, we've voted the way we voted, and the rest is really up to God. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we have no control over beyond that, right?
Yeah.
You only have control over, how you live your life, how you take care of your friends and family, and what contributions you make to society every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this election, no matter what happens, I hope we never lose sight of that because that is, I think, fundamentally what makes Americans so great is that you know, we'll shake hands at the end of the day and we'll all be Americans. We may not like the results if they don't go our way, but, at the end of the day, we all still love this country and we'll do everything we can to protect it against any threat, foreign and domestic. And, um, it's my hope that at least if things go the right way and Trump is elected, that he doesn't run into the same issues that he did in the first term when he was so new to Washington. There were a lot of people that he brought into his inner circle that didn't have his best interests in mind, were specifically undermining and sabotaging him. My hope is that he's at least become wiser and understands sort of the political dynamics in play. But of course, all that is for naught if people don't go out and vote. My hope is that with these early election returns in some of these key battleground states like Pennsylvania, for example, things aren't like in all of these metropolises, Atlanta, Philly, Detroit, Milwaukee, and even Phoenix and Las Vegas. Like they're not looking that favorable for Democrats, and I think it's so much harder for the Democrats to convince the electorate that Kamala Harris won, Scott, free and clear. She won fair and square because of everything that's happened in the last few months. President Trump didn't almost die for him to lose to Kamala Harris. Okay,
He's
he took a bullet to the air. He almost had his brains blown out. He almost got assassinated a second time. You're going to tell me that he's just going to lose to Kamala Harris like that by cheating? God has a higher purpose I think, for Donald Trump and for the American people that support him. I don't think he's going to go down with the whimper. I think now that we know what the odds are and what's stacked up against pretty much, I would say, a majority of Americans, a silent majority of Americans, there's no reason why we can't all stand up and let it be known that this is unacceptable if things don't go the way that they're supposed to go.
How did that bullet? It still is insane.
It's insane. It
His
really is
his head
divine
should have been
intervention. It
scooped
is
clean off.
divine. If you cannot convince me that there isn't a God after watching that video,
Yeah, I mean
You're
it's just statistically. I'm not a good shot. I could do that. I could do that. I go shooting occasionally. I could make that shot. Don here is a savant, and he can hit a raccoon on a roller coaster, as Mike Durant said about the Delta Force snipers. But um,
I
uh,
it was my job for a period of time to calculate ballistics
yeah,
mathematically. That shot is effectively impossible. That
yeah,
cannot happen.
exactly. Yeah, no,
It is a statistical zero.
yeah,
It
no,
doesn't exist.
it's not.
you're talking about hitting the ear or like,
Yes.
We're missing the
yeah,
way to miss that
missing.
close. I mean, dude,
It,
I've hit farther shots, and I think I've gone shooting less than 10 times in my life. I've hit that.
You could also make the case that, like, the small domino, big domino meme. Like the small
Yeah.
domino is
Well, it's Harambe.
no,
We
no,
all accept that. Let's
well, we
not.
think it's Harambe, but it's actually the Obama 2014 undocumented minor crisis, leading to all of this undocumented immigration, which leads up to
Oh
Trump looking at the
man,
statistics, moving his head ever so slightly, missing a
that
bullet,
is a good
and making,
point.
yeah.
yeah.
It's like the meme of who's it Abe looking down from heaven. Maybe
Yeah,
the
Shinzo.
maybe Reagan's amnesty in California 50 years ago led to this.
Oh
Yeah.
man,
Yeah. Stay
yeah,
yeah.
deep
Yeah.
cut.
Yeah. Stay frosty. But I mean, and so I always do come back to how did he win in 2016? That's like a weird
So the
thing we
polls
don't
were so
really
heavily in favor. The polls were so heavily in favor of Hillary Clinton that I think the people who typically cheat in elections are the people who like say manipulate voter tabulating machines. They didn't enter the correct algorithm that would give them the enough votes. I think the American people overwhelmingly beat the machine in 2016,
so it
and in 2020 didn't want to make that same mistake.
Yeah.
so it begs a couple questions, and it's, has every election been fraudulent for decades?
Mhm.
How did he win 2016? How did that happen? Is what was that, a statistical impossibility? That were they not cheating? I don't believe that the cheating
No, they
started in
definitely
20.
were cheating, or they definitely were cheating in 2016, but they didn't cheat to the same degree
Okay,
that they cheated in 2020.
which then I think, not anecdotally, but just looking at that, there is credence to too big to rig.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
whether it's
it worked in 2016. It's
it's
just a
just
matter of
it's
whether,
yeah
like, is Kamala going to get 100 million voters,
yeah, I mean
or
it's like, did
they'd
Trump
have to get
really,
more than they'd have to get more than Biden.
yeah, it'd be like, well, did Trump really win in 2016? If the answer is no, well then what, how did he cheat? Did he have Russian assets? And if it's no, well then it was overwhelmed. Well, then you have to look at too big to rig and say it can be overwhelmed. And if you say, well, he didn't overwhelm it, it was just the cheating didn't work, or somebody, some unsung hero we still don't know about blocked the cheating in 2016, that implies it. So just the very factual fact that they both indicate kind of, maddening scenarios. The fact that 2016 happened says it can happen tonight. The fact that 2020 happened says it can happen tonight. We're really getting nowhere with it. But Don, I keep cutting you off.
No, you're good, man. So the I don't want to discourage people, right? But if you want to sit down and discuss whether or not they can cheat infinitely, well, I mean that's how cheating works.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody has to say this is too ridiculous, we have to stop, because nothing else will inherently stop cheating. So, is it on the table that they could just change vote tabulations to yes, 1 billion people voted? Sure, it is. Um, I think that might go particularly ridiculously out the window. To Siraj's point, is she going to get 100 million votes? That seems, again, I don't think that's substantially better than 1 billion, honestly. Given the number of voters in the country, that's a ridiculous number for her to get. And so at some point, either someone who is willing to cheat, and whether anybody likes it or not, again, I reference California. They've been cheating for literally my entire life. So somebody is willing to cheat. Now, the question becomes, at a national level, are they willing to say, hey, we're going to cheat so hard that this is obvious to literally everyone? And I ask that question again with the caveat, in the most well armed country in world history. I
It
don't know that that's the case.
it's
And so, by all means, vote. Take your friends. All of these things are true, right? I'm not suggesting that anybody do anything wild, but I don't think that suggestion needs to come from me. I think if we ended up with 1 billion votes or something ridiculous, lots and lots of people would do crazy things.
it's like when people have asked me, when, like, for anyone that doesn't watch my show regularly, Dale Comstock, who is American GI Joe, who was in Delta Force of 23. Sometimes people will be like, "Yeah, man, Dale's got really intense rhetoric. They're like, you should tone that down." I'm like, "Do you understand that when I get in the podcast with Dale, he takes the steering wheel and I put like a binky in my mouth and sit in the back seat? Like, the people that are going to do things are people that they don't listen to me say do it, and they don't listen to me say not." That's like watching Godzilla and being like, "Hey, tell that lizard to knock it off." Like, "Hey, bro,
Stop it!
that thing just ate a
Stop.
747. I'm running.
Exactly.
I'm not telling it yes. No, I'm not. It's like, you should really tone that down. Yeah. So there is that, and then there's I think
I knew you were a lib.
yeah, right. Yeah,
Marvel. This is like when Thanos and
oh God, Thanos was right, just for the record. But it's like there is a. I don't think it was Siraj. I think it was Jake. But we were texting last night, kind of about this, and it did come up to there is still self-preservation instincts at some level. And I don't doubt that the people at the very apex, either because of they're just so financially disconnected from people, or they're just they've been a senator their whole life with private security, and they're it's just your archetypal, your stereotypical detached kind of elite. I don't doubt that they'll say kind of let them eat cake, like give her 200 million votes. Someone somewhere has to drop off those ballots. Someone somewhere has to do that when it gets so egregious. And especially, it's not just that it's 2020, it's that 2020 also, we're in a timeline where 2020 occurred. People are now looking for that. It's not just that it's trying to hijack a plane after 9/11. It's like it's difficult enough. You're now doing it in the wake of something, and whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. The same thing with an immune response. If it doesn't kill you, you become robustly immune to it. Someone somewhere has to still do that. And it could be, maybe I'm building it up. It could be as simple as, hey, just enter a code. Someone's got a van full of ballots, and they're not entirely sure if they're being recorded. Self-preservation kicks in somewhere. And maybe it's just like, well, if it's one van, that's all we need. But if it's like, hey, man, it's been 18 days since the election and they still haven't called this county of 800 people and everyone's watching
5,000 votes.
and I'm just walking into town, like we're a town where literally everyone knows each other's name, and I'm just pulling up in a semi truck like, hey, folks doing? They're sometimes somewhere somebody's going, hey man, they're only giving me $1,000. Man, I'm out of it. Someone somewhere has self-preservation. Don,
I understand that that's not actually how this works,
all
right?
right.
Maricopa County, Detroit, etc. It's never, the town that I live in, people live next to people. It's not everybody knows everybody's name. There's, I don't know, some 20,000 people in this county, but this county is too small. There's not enough voter margin to work with, right? And the hope of this kind of ballot harvesting and all these other kinds of games that are played is that you can find enough votes of people who didn't vote, who you can submit ballots for, and then no one is going to complain about it because, well, yeah, there was an 80% voter turnout for the first time in American history. And that just means people were really excited about the guy who campaigned from his basement per 2020, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing that should be kept in mind here, and why I am more than happy to talk about all of these frauds and cheating and all this other kind of thing, is that if Trump wins, and I am very hopeful that Trump wins, because there's a pardon in it for me. So I'm very hopeful that Trump wins. Now, that said, if Trump wins, there is still going to have been cheating. This is why I keep referencing California. There is nothing in the world that is going to stop California from cheating, except somebody going down there and arresting basically everyone involved with elections and then going through all of that data line by line. And guess what? Even if Trump wins, that needs to happen. This, but we won. Just let it go. I would like you all to think, go back to where you were on January 20th, 2017, and go, oh, well, it doesn't matter. Even if there was cheating, who cares? And then I would like you to look at 2020.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been very, very good if we would have gone through that election data in 2016 line by line, because then 2020 might not have happened. This is a thing that we have done in this country for a very long time, where we go, oh, well, we're not happy that Barack Obama got elected, this, that, and the other. And yeah, it doesn't look particularly great, but we won 2016, so it doesn't matter. It matters. And it matters for all of time. Your children's children will have to put up with whatever cheating you tolerate. So stop tolerating it. Go back and look, examine these elections, examine what's going on. If you think that 2020 was stolen, even if you don't think 2020 was stolen, wouldn't you like to know? And the answer is, of course, if you cheated, no, you don't want to know because you already know, right? And that's why none of them want to go back and look.
Yeah, no, it is. It
Yeah,
is.
Theo Vaughn has a great quote, in which he says, "Nothing changes if nothing changes." And ever since I
Exactly
heard
that.
that, I think of that every single time, things seem like bleak or stagnant. Look, I understand that there are going to be apathetic voters out there who simply like just don't have the energy to go out and vote. Like those are the people who have no skin in the game, right? Everyone who actually goes out to vote and knows who they're voting for and knows the issues that they're voting on, they know exactly what they're doing. At this point, you could go back to 2008 and look at sort of like the differences between Democrats and Republicans. Not that big of a difference, right? Look at the Democrat Party of 2024 and the Republican Party of 2024. They are so far apart on every issue that it is almost impossible to look at a middle of the road voter and say, how do you not know who you're voting for? Like
Yeah,
one
they don't
one
exist.
party, yeah, they don't, those people don't exist. So like you're gonna have a lot more parity in that regard. And on top of that, you will have uh there will be people who look, I was a Hillary 2016 voter. I've
Oof.
I've been very public about it. I went from two-time Barack Obama voter to a Hillary Clinton voter, and then after Trump was out of office, I finally realized what he did for the country and where the country was heading in that moment. And I took advantage. I realized that I took it for granted, and I made a promise to myself that I would never let that happen again. So one thing just one thing about his first term, if you remember, Trump didn't even have the entire Republican Party behind his back. So
No.
like even him bringing up anything about voter fraud, he'd have Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan basically screaming at him behind closed doors. What are you doing? We're trying to get like tax reform done. Like this is an issue that nobody cares about. Well, now in 2024, if he actually wins the election, he's got allies in Washington. He's got allies in the private sector. He's got allies across the aisle. Interestingly enough, I mean, why do you think Tulsi Gabbard went from Democrat to Republican? Like it didn't happen overnight, obviously, but it's one of those things where you see how the Democrat machine chews up and spits out their own people. I think JD Vance mentioned this on the Rogan podcast, where it's very much leftism is very much its own religion, but they don't have the concept of forgiveness.
No.
So when someone messes up or says something that doesn't fit with the narrative or the orthodoxy, they're excommunicated, they're expelled, they're basically dead to them, and it's it becomes eye-opening at that point where like, hey, I'm not actually these people aren't actually part of the solution to America. They're mainly the problem. So and once more people realize that Democrats are the party of forever wars and also for sort of this ideological purity of utopia, a fantastical utopia that will never exist, where everybody is treated equally except for those darn dissenters. Like when if people really realize what they're on about, I think you would find more and more Americans would vote against that.
And
That goes cyclically. And I say that because I am a giant nerd who has been paying attention to politics for way too long in my life. And the best example I have of that is post Reagan and older Daddy Bush. There's a very specific interview with Hillary Clinton where she is talking about her and Bill and running for office, and she delivers this line that is, I'm not one of those crazy liberals. I'm a classical progressive, right? And that may seem a little odd, or just even nonchalant drop of a line in 2024. But in 1992, the reason that she's doing that is because Reagan had destroyed the left in this country. He just sat on stage and mocked them to death. All these lines that we get, all these videos of Reagan that we have talking about, I don't know why we're paying attention to lawbreakers. I don't know why we care about them as opposed to good, upstanding American citizens, on and on. All of these things come from his time in office coming back off the exact same kind of thing that we are looking at right now. And what ends up happening is that things under Reagan, and I'm not here to debate whether or not Reagan was the greatest president in American history, I don't care. But financially, economically, and just general life, things were going pretty well under Reagan, right? You get Rudy Giuliani fixing New York during that time. After, by the way, what was going on, all of New York was just a disaster. Go back and even watch Hollywood movies. Even they are reporting these things as just truly crime-ridden cesspools, right? Giuliani shows up, broken windows policing, New York becomes a viable city to live in again. By the way, this is the era that most of us of my age group, which I think we're all relatively close, remember New York, where, yeah, maybe it's not the most amazing city that's ever existed or anything like that. It's got its problems, but like it's a decent place to be, and it's going pretty well. And when things are going pretty well, you start to get a lot of this like, well, how much does it matter if we give a little bit extra welfare, if we support people who are making crazy life choices, right? And then somebody comes back in a little bit later and says, yeah, okay, I understand that we were trying to be nice, but also, now you can't walk down the street in Los Angeles without stepping on 6 homeless people. Maybe we should stop that, right? And
or their fecal matter.
exactly, right. And so in that sense, the cycle will continue. And for those of you who intend to be in this in the long haul, and I understand that things are pretty peak excitement at the moment, but for those that intend to be in commentary for the long haul, there's going to come a time in 10 years where things are going well again, where we're not listening to gender transition surgeries in, every 45 minutes on mainstream news or whatever these other kinds of crazy things are. And at that point, the younger generation is going to say, well, for all of my life, right? Because they're not going to remember when they were 5. They're going to be 15 to 18 in that vicinity. They're going to be the voters of the next election. They say, well, things are pretty good. How big of a deal is this? Now, don't get me wrong. The youth vote's a joke. Doesn't exist. But the people one, decade older than that are going to be about voting age, and they're going to have the same mentality. They're not going to remember as a whole that Kamala Harris was talking about taking your guns. That's not going to happen, right? Specifically if she loses. Tell me what the losers platform of the 92 election was. Go ahead. And that is somebody who was president of the United States. And very few people remember or care or any of those things. I know there's going to be some 10 people in chat who are like, oh, here's this platform. I keep it linked. Yes, congratulations. You too are just like me, who spends way too much time reading all of these kinds of things. Keep them on hand. But ask your friends, right? They don't have this. They don't care what Bush Sr. was going to do in a second term. None of it matters to them. They are concerned about what's going on in the moment. And that's going to be just as true in 10 years as it is today.
Put the knife in and then twist it. Don't stop at Berlin.
Yeah, no,
Keep going to Moscow.
It's a good point. It's a good point, Don, about it being cyclical. I mean, I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't remember a time that was really great for America. I think the Trump years were good, but like beyond that, man, I don't recall a fantastic time in my lifetime of
mine was
this country's.
childhood. It was the first 10
but
years of your life.
has,
That's what I mean. As I was going to
those are
say,
the best years
I'm
of
saying
your
it
life.
mockingly. The first 10 years of my life, which are fun, and I just happened to be born in 1990 America. I was literally born in like Space Jam, Michael Jordan America. Like I was born
That
at
was
the apex.
The 90s were the height.
I was born at the, and that's where my childhood was. It was the height for adults.
Yeah.
Put that in with nostalgia. I was truly born at the apex. It's just been a downward spiral since then, and I'm pulling up.
Ever since they came up with these devices.
Oh, Siraj is full dad mode now. These phones are the bane of.
I am not even joking about that, Tommy. You put this in someone's hands, they immediately become dumber.
Correct.
It is the psyop that we never talk about.
The only people when you look back in time and do those old videos who have not a phone in sight, it's because they didn't exist. It's the only thing. The reason people are skinny is because McDonald's wasn't there. They're not better people than us. They didn't have the toys.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I think in conclusion, because I do got to go get in line to vote, is if 2016 can happen, it can happen again.
Right.
And what Siraj said, you really can only do your part. We all have platforms. There's no, man, I wish I had been more vocal earlier. We've all done that. And maybe this is more directed at myself than anyone. If you believe in God, you have to mean it. It's not just a fun thing you pray to. Be like, do you really believe this? And yeah, I do feel God's presence in my life. All right, he's not taking an off day today. Now I don't know what will happen. Whatever's supposed to happen, I imagine, is supposed to happen in this life, this universe, this whatever. But it's not like it's like looking at the sun and being like, yeah, the sun's rising. It's like we very rarely remember that it is a ongoing nuclear fusion reaction, like a trillion times bigger than Earth. Like sometimes you got to go, no, I do because I'm white and I get burned. But sometimes you go, it's kind of crazy. It is kind of crazy when you see that, So that's if you really do believe in God, hey man, throw him up a prayer, ask him for patience, ask him for courage, and don't stop praying. To go vote, and I think we've all tried our
No
hardest.
matter what happens, no matter
Life
what
keeps
happens,
going. I'm 34, man. I got a life ahead of me. No matter what, I'm gonna keep going, and it's whatever.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna. I think I told you this
Life
last night.
doesn't
Or
stop.
No, it doesn't.
Life doesn't stop at each election.
No, it
God.
doesn't. Yeah,
People always need God, and I don't think people realize how much everything happens for a reason.
it does.
You are where you are not because of decisions you made, but because that's where you are supposed to be.
Correct.
In that moment.
And seek solace in God, and whatever happens, happens. So the meme energy is strong. That is my positivity. And I know this is a very clean network, so I won't repeat it. But the 4chan,
incredibly clean.
The 4chan screenshots look good. The same numbers from 2016. Trump wins. The repeating digits. I don't know if you got. I'll send them to you after this. The repeating digit 4chan thing is back, and they look very good. The meme numbers look good, sir. So, for everybody listening, thank you so much. You guys know me, Tommy's podcast, Siraj Hashmi. It's on Rumble, Habibi Roast Podcast, Don the Pleb, Plebeian Media. That is, and I'm streaming it on mine as well. Please go check them out. And they're both my good friends, and I love them dearly. And gentlemen, thank you for doing this on a short notice. I texted both of you guys this morning. Thank you for doing this. And yeah, God bless America. And yeah, say a prayer. Gentlemen, thank you.
Cheers, kings and queens.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I got to get out of here. Take care. Peace.